the stupidest thing you've done?
Story 1. I was being onboarded for a new job which required all the regular documents, ID, SSN, all the good stuff. Put it all in a backpack the day before to be prepared, then left said backpack in my car. Then my car got stolen and my identity is now stolen because I left the backpack inside. Edit. Since this is my highest upvoted thing ever, I feel obligated to leave an update. My vehicle was recovered this morning by officers making a suspected narcotic stop. 2 people were arrested and charged with the possession of a stolen car, but their lack of knowledge smoking crack in a 711 parking lot under a camera combined with the still missing ID documents. They aren't the suspected thieves, so I have my car, but my identity is still compromised. Story 2. For our high school senior trip, our school always went to a ski resort a few hours away. My friends and I decided that we would drive up instead of taking the bus with the others, because we wanted to bring alcohol and didn't want to risk not being able to get some underage. Well, word of what we were doing started spreading, and more people came up to us and asked us to buy them booze too and bring it with us. Before we knew it, we had dozens of requests, and everyone was willing to pay us double, even triple the cost of the booze. We decided to rent a van because at this point, we would be hauling over $3,000 worth of booze. Unfortunately, we weren't the smartest bunch, and started getting a little cocky with this new business venture we had created. We started going up to all the grads and telling them what we were doing. Soon after that, we had over $5,000 worth of booze orders. This one girl, Jillian, came up to us and asked us to buy her a 12-pack. No problem. The night before we were to leave, she is sitting at dinner with her family who is telling her the dangers of trying to buy alcohol illegally from liquor stores. Don't worry parents, she says, some kids at our school are taking orders and bringing booze for us. Jillian's parents call the school, tell them everything. I get called into the office. Jillian had came to me for the order the next day and basically get my handed to me. I would have been expelled if my mom hadn't begged the principal to take pity. And there could have been a criminal case, but luckily for us we hadn't bought the booze yet, so there was no evidence. I took the punishment like a man and never ratted out on my 3 co-conspirator friends. I got 7 days suspension, 3 additional in-school suspension days, and couldn't go on the grad trip. I also become my vice principals for the remaining few weeks, and she made me do random things like help stock the cafeteria, clean smoke pit, etc. The entire senior trip got delayed 2 days. They called a school-wide assembly to tell them our scandalous ways and tell them the dangers of underage drinking, etc. All in all, I got a pretty awesome story out of it and learned only one lesson: don't trust Jillian. 2 things tie for stupidest. 1. When I was about 9, I zipped myself up in a suitcase and got stuck. 2. Again I was maybe 10. I tied some water weights around my hands and feet to walk on the bottom of the pool and nearly drowned myself. Edit. Thank you for the platinum, random stranger. I'm glad you enjoyed me nearly killing myself, twice, out of stupidity. Edit. 2 stories for what happened. 1. Suitcase. I wanted to hide from my grandfather and knew he'd be coming into the room soon. I saw a suitcase and always wanted to zip myself up. I knew if I was going to do that, I needed a way to breathe and immediately thought about a straw. I ran to the kitchen, grabbed one, got in, and zipped myself up. Somehow I ended up dropping the straw outside the suitcase and freaking out a little, but knew I had to remain calm. My grandfather came in some minute later. I of course was wanting out and called to him Papu, grandfather in Greek. He said Mathio. I said yeah. He said where the are you? I said down here. In the suitcase. He asked how I got in. I explained and he got me out too. Swimming pool incident. I saw on a cartoon show that they were walking on the bottom of the sea and wanted to do the same. My mom had some water weights to use in the pool, so I immediately thought cool, I'll use these and walk on the bottom. I put them on, got in the pool, and walked to the deep end. I was thinking this is so cool, when I heard my mom say Mathio, dinner is ready. I wasn't entirely sure what she said, so I jumped up and said what, but as soon as I got my head above water, the weights pulled me back under and I sucked in water. I started panicking, jumping up gasping for air, but getting a little air and more water. I knew I had to get to the side of the pool to grab the ledge and pull myself out, and that's what I did. I still think back on that incident wondering if I wasn't able to get to the side, they'd think I killed myself. Story 3. Mixed bleach with ammonia. It was my first job at a restaurant. As noob I had to do most of the floor cleaning come closing time. One of the drains is clogged by accumulated grease. I was originally going to bring some water to a boiling point, throw it down the drain and hope is unclogged enough to make it to the grease trap underground. Mind you, I'm doing all this with no supervision, me being a lazy little, not wanting to wait for boiling water. Remembered my uncle telling me something. If you mix straight bleach with detergent you can unclog toilets. Me not knowing any better thought I'd use this genius idea to unclog the drain, without knowing if it was true or not. I go to the supply room where they keep all cleaning products. I get a gallon of bleach but I can't find any detergent. Then from the corner of my eye I spot lime away containers. I've seen the grill being cleaned with this stuff. It removes all the grease and burnt stuff from the grill being used all day. I think to myself, this has to be stronger than detergent, it would probably work faster. So grab both and get back to the clogged drain. I opened and poured both at the same time. Holy dash, when you breathe this stuff it feels like something entered your lungs and displaced all the air inside, like being strangled from the inside, and your throat hurts a bit. I make a run for the back door, think WDF I've done to missile. I'm coughing and I can't catch my breath. Luckily for me there were only 3 people left in the restaurant. The manager, the dishwasher and my dumb manager walked in the kitchen right after it happened and saw me run outside. The dishwasher came right after him saying he can't breathe, so we stayed outside for a while waiting for it to dissipate. Surprisingly, I didn't get fired, just reprimanded. I bet things would have been different if I had done this during business hours, and that's how I almost gassed myself on my first ever job not even a week in. Story 4 went through multiple bulbs and a couple mechanic visits over a couple weeks, only to realize I was changing the wrong headlight. My wife won't let that one go. Story 5 I applied the flammable anti-mosquito spray on a lit candle so that it would make the candle mosquito repellent. Edit lightened lighted lit sorry. Story 6 in junior high school I was running down the stairs at lunchtime, and when I got to the point where there were 3 steps left, I thought I'd do something kind of cool and fun and jump down and skip the last 3 steps. I stupidly did not look up and realized that there was a flight of stairs above the stairs I was on, and I was pretty tall. I leaped, and a second later the lights went out. Next thing I knew I was waking up with a bunch of people crowded around me. I forget how long I had a headache afterwards for obvious reasons. Story 7 in high school, I lived in the basement and thought it was cool to go in and out through the basement windows. I lost my saxophone for a few days, and couldn't find it anywhere. I finally realized that I had been using it as a step stool to get in and out of the windows several times a day. In an unrelated story, I often get foggy eyes in the shower and then realize I left my glasses on. Story 8 got a vasectomy, got it reversed, then got another vasectomy. Snip snap you have no idea the physical toll that 3 vasectomies has on the body. Story 9 I was jamming out to Def Leppard in the shower a few days ago, and the final guitar solo of Let's Go starts. I proceed to go ham on the air guitar, blow it out of the water, would have even made Simon Cowell smile however, as it comes to an end. I somehow managed to punch myself in the on a downward strum, and end up crying on the floor of the shower for the next 15 to 20 minutes or so. Story 10 jumped off a bridge into a river with no idea how deep the water was or what was in the water, passed a semi on an icy 2-lanes road, spun out, hit his tires and thank God didn't go under the truck, just ended up in a snowbank. Driving stoned and drunk at high rates of speed and went off a small cliff, rolled my car about 6 times and walked away, sold everything I owned and moved to Hawaii with nothing but 2 suitcases, $1,000 in cash, and a piece of property ID never seen in the rainforest outside Hilo. Lived there for 5 years. Got my CDL in 5 weeks, never had a trainer, and drove off in a semi in the middle of a Montana blizzard with my first load. Lucky I didn't die in the first week. You live long enough, you look back and it seems like your entire life is a history of bad decisions that you somehow made it through and out the other side. Edit I started smoking. If I had to choose anything, picking up my first cigarette when I was 14, that wins. I was once driving an ATV at work and had a song in my head. I then reached for a non-existent volume button to try and turn the music up. Story 11 Once I 10 was on the playground with my younger 7 sister. She was swinging real high on the tire swing. Macy's rocked the size of her head. Yo, I should throw this against the tire so it bounces off as she's swinging towards me. It's pretty heavy so I'll have some good bounce to it. Rock hits her in the head. She needed staples. Story 12 I played with pipe bombs when I was a teenager because they're fun. I didn't hurt myself or kill anyone, but I definitely could have if I ever got careless. I blew up a discarded propane tank in a deep ravine. The police showed up. I did not get arrested. I just played dumb and left. I figured that was a good opportunity to quit while I was ahead. I still have all my fingers and no criminal record. Time to walk away. Story 13 Back in high school I took visual effects, a kind of combination shop art class that focused on creating movie effects and such a pretty unique offering for a high school. I was one of a few students that took it outside of normal class time due to other classes, which kind of became a self-study class. It was quite common for the teacher to not be present due to this, as he had other teaching obligations. While working on a project, a girl in my class needs to cut a wire, but didn't know how. She decides the best way to do so is with a table saw, and asks me to help hold the wire. Me, being a complete idiot at the time, agreed. Thinking that I needed to anchor my end of the wire to hold it taut, I decided, let's wrap the end of the wire around my finger a few times. So I do so, she holds her end, we turn on the table saw, and lower it down, and of course the saw instantly grabs and pulls the wire. Luckily for me, she was just holding the wire on her end with her fingertips, so it was pulled out of her hands, saving my hand from being dragged into the saw as I had wrapped the wire tightly around my finger. This was over a decade ago and I still cringe horrifically at my stupidity. Story 14 At age 10, I threw a Satsuma-sized rock after my older brother at 50 paces after head insulted me and started walking away. Hit him in the head. He was out for 2 minutes. I was sure I had killed him. I sat by him and cried, and then I put a sour candy in his mouth to try and be nice to him, and he started chewing it, and then the rest of my life began. Can't say it hasn't affected my self-image. Story 15 So was installing a light fixture, and it suddenly got very dark outside. I said, "It's so dark, here let me turn on the light for you." I forgot he was installing the light fixture that I just tried to turn on. Story 16 As a kid I slammed my own head in the car door. I was so busy making sure that I wouldn't slam my arms or legs in the door that I somehow forgot. Luckily it wasn't that hard of a slam so it didn't do any significant damage, just a bump on my head for a bit. Story 17 Caught a couple of rattlesnakes by hand while I was alone and far from any possibility of help. I wanted to be a herpetologist at the time and caught lots of non-venomous snakes in those days. I got lucky and wasn't bit. Story 18. The most recent stupid thing I've done. I work at a doctor's office and a patient called and needed to be seen right away. They talked to the doctor, and she told them that they could be seen today even if she had to squeeze them in. I told the medical assistant and she said, "Okay, we can squeeze them in right before lunch I suppose." Anyway, lunch rolls around and the doctor says, "Okay, I'm off to the hospital to perform a few procedures." The MA says to hang on, that she still has another patient. "Doctor, I do. Why, MA, you told us to schedule them, to squeeze them in because they had to be seen today." "Doctor, I said no such thing." MA, "Lily said you told her to schedule them." They both looked at me. Well, I didn't actually ask the doctor. The patient just said that they'd talked to you. Both the doctor and the MA started cracking up. Apparently ID been had. I really can't believe I fell for that. Nicely done, patient, but I will never again believe another thing anyone tells me. Story 19. Put the straw in the juice box. My brain farted, and in the split second that I thought it was still sealed I managed to shake it and spill juice all over me and my laptop. The laptop is fine, my dignity is not. Story 20. Honestly, probably starting smoking pot. In one way or another, it lead me down the road to almost all my problems. I haven't been able to find something that flips my switch like pot does ever since I was 14. I'm 28 now. I feel empty, alone, like I'm on a straight road towards nowhere in particular. I feel okay when I'm stoned, but life is almost unbearable without it. I've been in and out of treatment counseling so many times that I self-analyze nearly everything I do, think about other people's actions, thoughts about me in unhealthy ways. I recognize all this, but I just keep getting stoned. It's a complete vicious cycle. Story 21. Me and a friend got drunk and we decided to visit the horse stables at 2 a.m. by climbing over the fence. Getting in was easy, but getting out was a literal pain in the because the fence had small pointy things on top. Ended up with a hole in my pants and bruised hands, but I did get to pet one of the horses, which was nice. Story 22. Not a singular time, but sometimes if I point towards something and then just drop my arm, it will smack me right in the nuts. Did it twice last week. Story 23. Put butane from a lighter into a can, but lighter in can. It violently burned me, second-degree burns, or maybe the time when I was little I stuck my hand on a waffle iron, or maybe when I ate a pizza roll that came straight out of the microwave and caused a giant blister to form on the inside of my mouth. I have too many stories of me burning myself. Story 24. Was getting ready to leave the house to go to my sister's. She calls me to see what time I'm coming, and I tell her I'm about to leave. I do the obligatory 3 pocket check: keys, wallet, phone, and realize my phone isn't in my pocket. Cue a minute of panic because I can't find my phone before she calmly says, "How are you talking to me?" Felt pretty dumb after that one. Edited for unbearable typos. Story 25. There was a substitute teacher for my class in 5th grade. My real teacher keeps his gum in his desk. I decided to steal 2 pieces. Very dumb of me to do so. But then the next day when my real teacher is back, that is when I decide to chew the gum. Thing is, it is one of those extremely strong smelling gum. And my desk was set out right in front of his desk. Needless to say, I got caught. At first he questioned me, to see if I just happened to have the same gum as him, or if I did indeed steal it. I was too scared to lie, so I just told him the truth. Story 26. One evening while working at Subway, I came across a pretty stubborn piece of tomato wedged between the veggies cutter's blades. After attempting to spray it with a sink hose proved unsuccessful, I decided it'd be best to submerge the cutter in dishwater and delicately pick the piece out. There was so much blood, my God. Story 27. Was a loyal employee of a small family-owned company for 28 years. Did not get paid much, never took decent vacations, and had to mostly run the daily operations and manage all the employees and workflow. Was hoping to buy the company when owner retired. Turned down many offers from other companies that paid more and gave great benefits packages. Soon after the owner died, the family fired me and thought they could do it better. I now work for a great company in the same field. I earn double what I made before and have taken around 60 of the former company's revenue away. Lesson for all of you: do not ever be loyal to a company, boss, or coworkers when there is a better opportunity for you out there. Story 28. Pouring white gas camping fuel into the fireplace. There was an insert in it, therefore it did have a locking door, and lighting it, thinking I could close the door before it ignited. I was probably 13 and my plan failed spectacularly. Fireball in room, eyebrows singed, smell of singed burn hair. Luckily nothing in the room caught fire and my parents never found out, but a truly stupid moment. Story 29. I fell asleep drunk in a hotel shower once. I woke up when the manager burst into my room shouting. Apparently, I flooded the entire floor and the room below mine. My butt cheek must have blocked the drain. This was in Austria though, so the beer was good. Story 30. When I was a kid I didn't know what a car lighter was. I picked it up, saw the bright red side and thought I should touch that, burned my fingerprint off. Story 31. There's not enough letters on this keyboard. Once missed my layover at O'Hare because I was listening to music and playing a stupid game on my phone and didn't realize I was facing the wrong gate. When I realized I was looking at the wrong gate, it was too late and then plane had already left, leaving me stuck at the airport until the next flight the next morning 11 hours later. Story 32. I was trying to order 6 donuts, aka half a dozen, and I said to the lady I'd like 6 dozen please. She even repeated me and I confirmed. After I said 2 each of these, and that's it, and she said, "How many donuts are you wanting?" And I said 6. Invisible relief washed over her face and she told me what she thought I said. I've been thinking about this for 2 days now. Edit. Thank you UpUpCap for popping my silver cherry. I feel honored. Story 33 was lazy in college. Sat in room watching YouTube and most of the time, GPA was about 0, one above the required number to graduate. And then I sat on my for 2 years after graduating. I am not proud of the past decade of my life. Story 34 11-year-old me, I wonder what fire feels like. 11-year-old MES hand that. IT feels like that. You, something surprised Pikachu meme. Almost forget to wish you a happy cake day 3. Story 35 tried moving a very heavy solid wardrobe down the stairs on my own. I knew it was a bit risky, but what's the worst thing can happen? I maneuvered it upright round the 90-degree turn at the top of the stairs. Then while I was below it pulled the bottom of it out so I could slide it on its side down the staircase. Great, no problem. I relaxed as I gently slid it down and then as I was ducking my head under, I don't know what you would call it, half wall, half ceiling halfway down the stairs. It slipped, it pinned me by the neck into the wall ceiling thing and the top end dropped down a step so I couldn't move it back again. I tried to stay calm, but it kept slipping further and I felt like my neck would snap any second. Legs wobbling like jelly from the adrenaline, I tried smashing the wardrobe apart but it was having none of it. I turned my bleeding hands to trying to break the plasterboard my neck shoulders were against. I succeeded, but only to make a hole that jammed me in place even more. At this point I started panicking, so angry with myself that I might actually die from such stupidity. My legs were shaking like from being on tiptoes and I realized there was no way I could hold it for the 8 hours until my wife came home. So I started yelling and thank my elderly neighbor was in, heard me, had a key and there was a tradesman with them who was strong enough to get anything unstuck. I learned a lot that day about thinking things through and not just going it. I'll be fine. I electrocuted myself when I was 5 after putting a bobby pin in an electrical socket. I was a curious and dumb kid. Story 36 once when living at the beach, I got drunk at a house maybe 2 miles from my house, but probably less. I decided to float home in the current instead of walking, biking, or staying the night. The sound calm water behind the island is freaking scary at night. You know there's plankton or something that glows in the water when disturbed, so you can see fish swimming up to or away from you, but they look bigger than they are. You know how dark and quiet it can get back there. Once I got to my pier, I remembered about barnacles but I was lucky. My neighbor had their boat in the water so I used it to climb out. 1010 stupid. Story 37 when I was 14 I ran away with a boy I met on MySpace for several days that was 17. I had never met him in person before, he didn't even have a picture up, I didn't tell a single person where I was going, and our bright idea was to run away to the most remote location in the wilderness that we could possibly find. I'm alive today somehow. Story 38 got a girlfriend tattoo, nothing as awful as a full name or portrait, but it's A, poorly designed as B, technically an ex-girlfriend tattoo C, taking up precious real estate that should be used for better tattoos, D, expensive to laser off. Story 39 gave a midnight ride to a random guy at a gas station in exchange for some weed. Got to his house and he claimed it was at his friend's place. On the way to the friend's house he asked if I wanted to smoke some meth. I politely said no. He asked if I cared if he smoked some. Absolutely not. I said naturally. JK dummy was just like, yeah man, knock yourself out. When we got to the friend's house, he asked if I could give his friend a ride to the town bar. So now it's me and 2 Patrice O'Neal-sized fellas driving around town in my Ford Ranger. Them high on, at least meth, me sober, just really dumb. When we got there, guy number 1 asked if he could borrow my CDs, roughly 100 to take into the bar, because the bar owner would pay him to burn copies for the jukebox. Hell no, you can't take my CDs into this stank CD bar, JK. If you'll remember, earlier in the story I referenced how dumb I was, so I was like, yeah man, sounds reasonable. After waiting for about 15 minutes, something clicked in my brain that either he took my CDs and was long gone, or if I went in looking for them, I'd probably get murder robbed. So I went home weedless. That was 15-ish years ago and I'm not sure how I've made it this far. Also, one time I was supposed to wake up super early drive from Nashville to Little Rock to pick up my brother. After many hours I got a breathtaking view of the beautiful hills of North Carolina. Insert Dumb and Dumber reference. Story 40 taking my bicycle to buy groceries. Forgetting that I had taken the bicycle walked home. Couldn't find the bike next morning and so I believe my bicycle had been stolen during the night. Didn't have money to buy a new one so was bitching about it to a few friends. A week goes by, my friend calls, hey, I think I have found your bike. It is at the grocery store. God, I felt stupid, but the bike was unharmed. Tools still in the side bags and as a bonus I had forgotten to lock the bike. I was lucky. Story 41 poured melted wax down my bathroom sink costs. I thought that would be the best way to get rid of it. It immediately hardened in the pipe and blocked it. It just didn't occur to me that that would happen. Story 42 I have been a lifelong smoker. Started at 14 years old. When I was 50, I had major surgery and ended up on a ventilator for a week for post-op complications. Spent 2 additional weeks in the hospital. Went home a non-smoker. Had gone through all the worst of the withdrawal symptoms while I was intubated. Was fine for about 6 months and had a couple stressful things happen with one of my kids and no one won't hurt me happened. Now 10 years later, I have already had 1 heart attack, have very severe COPD and emphysema, can't walk up a flight of stairs, am pretty much confined to my home. If I had not had that 1 cigarette, I would not have the problems I have now. Granted, I still had injured my lungs but they would have had the chance to heal. Not now, now it's too late. Doc agrees with me that even if I quit now, my lungs would not heal enough to make a difference. Now I have about a year to live, and am still smoking. That was the stupidest thing I have ever done. Story 43. When I was 10, my dad had gone into a Starbucks, leaving me alone in the car. I was bored and had nothing to do, so I started playing with the seatbelt. Now, this was the sort of seatbelt where if you pulled it all the way out it would lock, and if it retracted a bit you couldn't pull it back out again unless you retracted it all the way back. So what does 10-year-old me do? I pulled the seatbelt out all the way and began wrapping it around my ankle. Then I try pulling the seatbelt back out to free my ankle. It doesn't come out. That's when I realize my stupidity. My dad now comes out and sees me. I tell him that I'm stuck. So what does he do? Pulls the seatbelt all the way back in and... nothing, still stuck. We try untangling it. Nothing. At this point we've been trying for 15 minutes, we've given up. So he calls 911, the firemen come and try untangling it themselves. They also have no luck. So they cut the belt, free at last. Boy was I a kid. Story 44. Got high on my high school roof. Ended up falling down a 4-foot drop that was on the roof in 48. I almost split my head open if it wasn't for my friend sitting at the bottom of the drop hitting the last of the joint and landing onto them. Story 45. It's usually the everyday things I never fix. Email a work contact with my private email instead of work email. Send an email to apply for a job and forget attachments. Story 46. After my ex broke up with me, we were living together. I moved into the apartment above her, not even in a creepy way, just was so numb and not thinking properly. Yeah, that was really fucking dumb. Story 47. Trespass onto, vandalize, and attempt to steal stuff off private property, an old paper mill that is regularly patrolled, and almost got caught. Hey race, the whole story. I went to college in a college town. And part of those you have to do this before you leave. Things that everyone talked about was going out to the old Georgia Pacific paper mill, long abandoned. The brick buildings were decrepit, half demolished, and the other half scheduled to be. One night, some friends and I decided we should go do it. A few of us were a little drunk and underage. One of us was very high before it was legalized, another one on DMT, and one other person and I were sober. A chain-link fence, barbed wired at some parts, bordered the 137-acre compound, a good chunk of which was where the pulp mill, chemical plant, and tissue mill sat. It was said that around the compound, nearer to the waterfront, there was a hole in the fence. So in the middle of the night, lured by local lore, a group of 20-something college students sought to test the truth of the tales. We stumbled our way along the fence, and followed it to the side of another abandoned building outside of the compound, just off of the waterfront. Sure enough, right where the building met the fence again, a line had been cut through, and the fence pulled back just enough to notice. This was it. Wide-eyed and surprised, a little scared, but most excited, we pulled back the fence and one by one entered the compound. We walked directly to the building nearest us, which was still quite a ways away across open pavement. There were rambler-sized piles of brick from demolished buildings, patches of weeds growing through cracks in the concrete, and two towering buildings that looked like a strong gust of wind could knock them over. We entered one of the buildings through an exterior door and were met with debris, dust, and a general sense of danger that only pushed us to explore every darkened corner. We walked up rickety stairs, kicked window panes from their frames, crept around on piping, and inspected anything that was small enough to carry out. Throughout the entire adventure, the inebriation and excitement couldn't keep us from yelling to each other from various points in every room. As an end to our triumphant conquest, we decided to climb up a spider web-covered fire ladder to get onto the roof. One by one, up a skinny, rusted metal ladder we climbed to the top. A few steps in, my foot sank slightly into a patch of moss-covered roof. This building really was about to fall apart, and it felt great. This was being young. This was living like there's no tomorrow. We shouted from the rooftop into the brisk autumn air. After much cathartic yelling, we climbed our way back down. At the bottom, we had left the treasures of our adventure alongside the building. Old papers, an old medicine shelf, pieces of old equipment, something to remind us of this night. We gathered them up and began to walk back towards the hole in the fence from where we came, and then we saw it. A police car parked facing the fence opening, lights illuminating the paved lot we had crossed to get here. We stopped, pressed our bodies against the side of the building and set down the things we were carrying. We weren't subtle at all, and we should have seen it coming, but we were too caught up in the thrill. I was sweating. We were whispering now. What were we going to do? We obviously can't go back that way. I can't afford to get arrested right now. There's got to be another way out. Slinking back around the corner behind the building, and amidst tall weeds growing on a small hill, we assessed the perimeter. Just ahead of us, past a mound of rubble and quite a bit of pavement, near the railroad tracks just outside the compound, the fence. It wasn't too far off, but there was barbed wire on top of it, and not the three-strand, evenly spaced out kind either. It was the spiraled kind, and it was the only way. I checked the perimeter again. On the same side as the one we were headed to, another car was driving slowly past the fence. I looked behind me. There was a light shining from the other side of the hill we had hid behind. I peered over the top to see another police car. I shushed everyone, and we all laid flat on the muddy ground. We military crawled through the mud to the far end of the hill so that the distance we had to run uncovered was as short as possible. The friend in front was going to give us the signal and we would follow. One by one, my heart was racing. There was an anxious silence in the air. He took off. We ran like. When we all arrived at the fence, we attempted to throw one of our coats over the barbed wire so we could climb over. On the third try it stuck, and we hopped over. The coat was the only thing sacrificed that night, sweaty, muddy, and still in shock. we followed the railroad tracks to a part of a hill that lead up to the street sidewalk. We were safe, TLDR trespass onto, vandalize, and attempt to steal stuff off private property an old paper mill that is regularly patrolled, and almost got caught. Story 48 just got my license, drove a friend home, and she had a very steep curb into her driveway, like a launch pad, which is why I decided to launch my '96 Honda Accord off of it going 40 miles per hour. Both my friends in the car thought it was a good idea too. Also, I smoked cigs for 11 years. Willfully staying is even stupider than being just stupid. Story 49 I've gone swimming while drunk 3 times in my life. Everything obviously went well, but it could have been pretty bad. Twice I was basically alone and the third time I was with friends who were also drunk. All 3 times were at night and in a moving body of water, aka twice in the sea and once in a river. I'm not a very good swimmer. Never again. Story 50 So for my 15th or so birthday, my parents bought me a pellet rifle. I had been at summer camp for a few years that had pellet rifles and all I ever did in our free time was go and shoot 'em. I got good. I've always been decent with rifles and bows. The pellet rifles at camp were sad and wimpy, but got the job done. If fired into a thick cardboard box they wouldn't make it out the other side. They barely got to the metal boxes we hung the targets on. So fast forward to last year, 19 years old, haven't shot this pellet rifle in the 4 years I've had it. Since whenever I wanted to shoot I'd just go to my friend's farm and we'd pull out his guns. I'm sitting here thinking this pellet rifle is the same kind of wimpy thing that I had at camp. I'm bored at home one day, and decide hey, I want to shoot this thing off. I go to my back door to set up one of the targets on the tree out back, but the neighbors are outside and I don't want to bother them. So I look out front, and same story except it's the judgy neighbor who gets pissed if I do anything interesting besides mowing the lawn. I finally decide hey, I've got 2 of those boxes made with real heavy-duty cardboard, the kind of stuff you can smack someone over the head with and actually do more damage to them than the cardboard. Still minimal damage since it's cardboard, but point is, it's thick stuff, so naturally, thinking my assumably wimpy pellet rifle wouldn't even get through one of these layers of cardboard, I put one box in the other therefore creating a barrier 4 layers thick, put it on my desk against my wall next to my window, aim, fire, smoke, dust. Check the boxes, look at the wall, go outside, see the hole from the outside, walk back inside, hang a picture over the hole, get rid of the evidence and stick the boxes with holes in the trash, put pellet rifle back in the closet. Oh that's nice, you finally got that picture hung up, kinda an odd place but it still looks good.